Hi guys, as you can see, I'm currently being stupidly lazy for my next one. I was going to do it on my bed, but thought like I was stealing Nick Gray's thunder, because he does love his bed for his Spooky Noodle reviews. By the way, if you get a chance, do sign up to Spooky Noodles, or rather subscribe. It is a really cool review channel, plus Nick's a darling. Anyway, as you can see, I have my blankie, which is my fairy tale blankie. I say mine, it's the mister's. I've harangued it, it's mine now. And my pug jammies. So I am settling down for another night of a wonderful horror for my 31 days of horror movies for Halloween. I'm late to the party, I know, but I decided to give you a part one of my top Halloween movies that I will be watching over this month. I did start a little early with me and the mister. He was telling me about this incredibly good horror movie that he loved, and I was like, I've never seen it before, called Dog Soldiers, where a group of like a training exercise for a group of army soldiers goes horribly wrong when they're confronted by werewolves. And I was like, oh, okay, that sounds quite interesting. It was bloody brilliant. And you know what I loved about it the most? No fake frickin' British accents. Do you know how annoying it is when, obviously for me, it's the Brummie or the Black Country accent. I cannot stand people that do a really shit version of my accent. Luckily, it's kind of faded off a bit since I've been working from home. I've had no one to imitate, essentially, because you do find that when you're around a certain environment, you end up picking up the accent. Mine's kind of died off a bit. Whereas my sister's has stayed quite predominant. She lives in well, she did used to live in Dudley, but you know, she's still got her accent. I'm hoping mine's gone a bit. But do you know what? It pees me off more than I can say when you have somebody that obviously is not doing an English accent really well. And to be honest, it was so awesome to have like this really original take on a werewolf story. And I think me and Matt and Tim were talking about it, how it very much emulates Zulu. I love Zulu, don't get me wrong, Sean Connery's a badass. But it was like Zulu with werewolves. I never thought about it that way. And then there's like this scene where they're actually discussing the movie Zulu, and I was like, oh my god, that's brilliant! Like, there's so many great one-liners in it, and there's so many good characters. The plot moves amazingly well. I loved it. So yeah, it ended up being my first movie of the Halloween season, and one I hadn't actually given a chance to try because I was like, oh well, you know what? You hear so many things about people recommending a horror, and it turns out cack, and you get really disappointed. So then my number two on the list was Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight, because who doesn't love a bit of Billy Zane? Well, I love the story, how it paced along. I love the action scenes. I am an old school girl, so I do love me some prosthetics and animatronics. So yeah, no CGI in sight. Billy Zane's acting, even like Will Smith's missus, her acting was bloody brilliant too. And I really loved the film. I love Tales from the Crypt anyway. The only one I can't stand is there is one with a dummy in it, and yeah, it just no. Anyway, so moving on to tonight's movie, which was 13 Ghosts, which I always enjoy. It's one of my top favourites. My next one, which I might watch a little. This is the problem though. I can't just pick 31 really good movies because I have an obsession with horror that has spanned many years, and there's a lot of new good ones out there from what I've been told. I'm skeptical because I've yet to find a horror that I really liked. However, the last couple of years, it's not been too bad. I mean, on my list is Hereditary, which really surprised me as like a ritualistic kind of storyline. I really enjoyed it. My One Tomorrow is my favourite film of all time. Top horror. that I've just been dying to get my hands on, but, you know, being introduced to new horror as well is essential to progressing, and getting used to the new market of horror is also kind of good for me as a writer to see what's, you know, new plots and new stories. So Hellraiser, obviously. You knew it was coming. I'm a Clive Barker fan by heart, so Hellraiser was always going to be on there. Hellbound Hearts was one of my favourite books, along with Cabal. So again, Nightbreed will be on there. And I bet you're thinking, well, actually, Nightbreed wasn't that great. Yeah, but it's still a classic to me because it's still based on one of my all-time favourite books. So I will happily watch Nightbreed. Plus, again, prosthetics. I love a bit of prosthetics. And do you know what? There is another film that I'll be adding to my list, which is Guillermo del Toro's Devil's Backbone. Now, I bet you were thinking, but Nat, why aren't you going for something like Pan's Labyrinth? Well, yeah, I like Pan's Labyrinth, but Devil's Backbone is a bit more sinister, more from my cup of tea, and it was the first Guillermo del Toro film that I actually saw, and it got me into his work. I love the mix of CGI and prosthetics. He doesn't sway away from the old ways of like the old horror ways of like using prosthetics, animation. I love that kind of style. So yeah, Devil's Backbone will be the after Hellraiser. Then I will be checking out another one of my favourites. I've probably already done it, but I'll do it again. I watched the remake of it the other day, and I posted it on my Facebook. If anybody follows my Facebook, they'll get what I'm on about. Nightmare on Elm Street with Robert Englund, who I absolutely adore. He always makes an amazing appearance in whatever he does. He puts his full heart into his acting. Love him. Everybody gets really like, oh God, Freddy scared me as a kid. He's running around in a bloody green and red sweater going, bleh. How's that scary? It's a classic. It's cheesy to me, but it's also really the concept of Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street is well known. It's an old classic. How can I not watch it? I've got the box set for Nightmare on Elm Street. And like I said before, after 3, it got shit. Dream Warriors was probably one of my favourites, which will surprise you quite well because you think, you know, the original stands out alone as it is. But Dream Warriors was really kind of an interesting take on the story, and it took it in a new direction where you got a bit more of Freddy's background. And I like that. Plus, I love the idea that the kids are trying to fight back with their dream powers. So, yeah, that'll be in my list too. And then we move on to a more original kind of horror. One that really surprised me with the twist at the end. And I bet you're thinking, oh, it's The Sixth Sense. No, can't be The Sixth Sense. Because my dad ruined The Sixth Sense for me. I'm not going to do it to you guys if you haven't seen The Sixth Sense, because I'm not cruel. But yes, we were all sitting there watching The Sixth Sense, and my dad turned round and went, oh wow, this is really good. You wouldn't expect for this to be the case. And I just looked at him dumbfounded and went, Dad, I haven't seen this film. And I just watched him shrink into his chair. And literally, it was like, my nan had a bad habit of doing this as well. She would literally sit there watching Catherine Cookson with me. Because don't get me wrong, I love my horror, but for my nana, I would always watch her Catherine Cookson and Jane Austen stuff. And she would do the same to me. She'd go, oh, did you know so-and-so dies at the end? I'm like, Nan, seriously? Anyway, so yes, it won't be Sixth Sense. It'll be The Others with Nicole Kidman. Because, oh my God, what a film. I was so surprised by that film. It really caught me off guard. And the ending was not what I expected. Everybody else was like, oh, I saw that coming. I didn't. I thought it was bloody brilliant. And the effects and everything, the story, the characters, even like the brief appearance of Christopher Eccleston, I was still like, ooh, Doctor Who fan here. But, you know, he was alright. Everybody hates Eccleston, but, you know, I actually thought he wasn't too bad a doctor. I think he kind of come off a bit as a Pertwee kind of vibe, so I think that's why not many people liked him. It's very old school, but so was Capaldi. I digress. So The Others would be the next on my list. And then here's a new one that I watched ages ago with my mother. So That's to my mom for introducing me to a really great horror. And it was a surprise to me as well, called Ghosts of War. It's on Netflix at the moment. And it follows, again, a bunch of soldiers who end up taking over a post from another section of a regime of soldiers. This house in the middle of nowhere, shit starts going down. It's not your typical haunted house story, I will tell you that now, because at first I honestly thought that was going to be the case, and I was like, Mom, really, another haunted house? No, just watch it, get into it, you'll understand why I've showed you this movie. Freaking hell, my mum has great taste as far as twists is concerned, so yeah, I definitely will watch that again just so that I can go over it in my head, because I know I missed a lot on the first time round, but the second time round I guarantee I'll be paying more attention. The next one on my list will probably be... Oh god, my brain just went flat. Just bear with me 2 seconds. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I had a brain fart and everything just died. So, my next one on the list is an American haunting. It's, again, not your typical haunted story, like ghosts and poltergeists and stuff. And I definitely like the sinister undertone of it more than anything. You don't expect it coming near the end, I'll tell you that much. But it definitely addresses some real life horror in that instance, and it follows a young girl who's been basically tortured to an extent, plagued by an unseen entity, and then it starts turning on everybody else in the house, and then as things start getting clearer, the visions become more vivid, you start understanding what is actually going on. And it is intense and very psychological, and I loved it. So I'm definitely rewatching that one again. The other one's Ghost Ship. Now, do not give me crap about liking 90s horror. I did like some of the 90s horror, which is why after Ghost Ship I'll be watching House on Haunted Hill, and not just because James Marsters is in it as a cameo. No. I actually did like the original House on Haunted Hill, and my brother Tom did get me the original as well on DVD. But I also like the 90s version of House on Haunted Hill. I really enjoy it. I still do. I love the gore factor. I love the story. I like all the characters in it. So yeah, I'm gonna like 2, maybe 3. So 3 of mine are 90s horrors, and everyone's gonna probably be like, what the hell, Nat? But I read a article a while back that basically dumped on all of 90s horror, and I get that if you're an old school classic person, like for example my mother is old school B-movies all the way, so she has Fiend Without a Face, she has Pit and the Pendulum, she has most of Vincent Price's stuff. I've got some Vincent Price on my shelf, thanks to my brother. Again, my brother's amazing. He always seems to find me the best classics. Like, oh crap, I can never find that. And then all of a sudden he'll go, ta-da, I found it. And I'm like, you're a magic man. Anyway, so yeah, I get the whole fascination with classic and B-movies and the lack of gore and over-sexualization in horror. Some people are not big on it. They don't think it's necessary, but some of them have really good storylines. Like Ghost Ship I really enjoyed. I mean, for crying out loud, even if you didn't quite like it, you've got to give credit to the very beginning of that movie. That intro freaking scene is just perfect. It's the perfect death scene. It's fantastic, and it'll always stick in your mind no matter what. Then you've got House on Haunted Hill. Again, there's some really classic moments in it that you do stick with. I get that some people are going to be old school horror and they're going to dump all over 90s, but I do like some of the 90s stuff. It's just a classic. I was born up into the 90s. Why wouldn't I like 90s horror? Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that, and then I'll continue in part 2 with the rest of my list, because I yab on quite a bit and I don't want to kill you all off. I'll speak to you all soon for part 2.